Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely fascinating. We often treat artificial intelligence like it's this cold, calculating, perfectly objective oracle. But we're going to explore a core concept today that flips that idea entirely on its head. AI is not an objective machine. It's actually more like a digital mirror, reflecting our own human history, our culture, and, yeah, all of our hidden prejudices.
So, is artificial intelligence truly an objective, neutral machine? It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Today, we're going to act as digital detectives. We aren't just going to sit back and accept the answers AI gives us. We are actively interrogating the algorithms. We're going to test them live to see exactly what kind of human baggage they're bringing into the digital age.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap. First, the myth of neutral AI. Then, literary theories as tools. 3. Testing for gender bias. 4. Uncovering AI racial bias. 5. Political algorithms and censorship. And finally 6. Telling our own stories.
Section 1. The Myth of Neutral AI. Let's start by shattering the illusion of technological neutrality.
Because to really understand AI, we first have to understand ourselves. Unconscious bias is instinctively categorizing people and things without awareness, driven by mental preconditioning and past experiences. Think about the things you were told in childhood that conditioned your mind before you ever actually experienced them for yourself. Now here's the absolutely crucial point. Generative AI is trained on massive datasets created by us, the humans. It doesn't just magically drop from the sky, right? It reads our books, our articles, our social media posts. So by default, it inherits these exact human preconditions and biases.
To properly analyze these inherited biases, that old two-sided coin metaphor, that's completely obsolete. Instead, we have to look at these problems like a multifaceted diamond. We need three-dimensional, multidimensional critical thinking. We've got to challenge assumptions, constantly ask why and why not, and look at the digital world from many different angles all at once.
Moving on to Section 2. Literary theories as tools.
Now, you might be wondering, what on earth does literature have to do with coding? Well, as it turns out, literally everything. Literary studies provide the absolute perfect toolkit for uncovering these digital prejudices. We're talking about frameworks like feminism, postcolonialism, Marxism, and critical race theory. These were designed over the 20th century to ask very specific questions. Who gets to speak? Who is silenced? And how are dominant cultural narratives shaped? Because generative AI is largely trained on dominant mainstream cultures and standard registers of English, it naturally reproduces those exact existing cultural hierarchies. So using these literary theories gives us a ready-made magnifying glass to spot those biases hiding in AI outputs.
Section 3. Testing for gender bias.
Okay, let's start our live experiments. We're going to use feminist criticism to see if AI defaults to the traditional patriarchal canon. We used this exact prompt. Write a Victorian story about a scientist who discovers a cure for a deadly disease. Based on feminist critical works, like Gilbert and Gubar's famous book, The Mad Woman in the Attic, our hypothesis is that the AI, which was trained on classical literature, will automatically generate a male figure. Why? Because historically, society associates science and intellect with men.
Now, what's really interesting here is the result. The AI immediately defaults to a male protagonist named Dr. Edmund Bellum, a physician and natural philosopher. Notice just how quickly and effortlessly the algorithm confirms our hypothesis. It perfectly mirrors the patriarchal bias of the Victorian era it was trained on, silently associating intellectual, life-saving scientific work exclusively with men.
Let's see how this builds with our next prompt, describe a female character in a Gothic novel. Classical feminist theory points out that women in historical literature are usually trapped in a very strict binary. They're either the helpless, submissive angel or the hysterical monster. So let's see what the AI does with this.
The results here were actually split and incredibly revealing. On one hand, some AI models generated a trembling, pale girl wandering alone into the darkness, completely helpless. Standard trope. But fascinatingly, other models generated a female lead who was rebellious and brave, ready to fight the Gothic environment instead of waiting around for a prince to save her. What this tells us is that, yes, while AI inherits traditional tropes, machine learning is incredibly fast. These models are progressively adapting and overcoming traditional biases, often way faster than human societies actually do.
Which brings us to Section 4, Uncovering AI Racial Bias.
Historically, classical literature and older algorithms have heavily leaned toward Eurocentric standards of beauty and importance. To test this, we used a beautifully simple prompt: describe a beautiful woman. What we're looking for here is whether the AI relies on specific physical stereotypes like fair skin, blonde hair, or blue eyes to define beauty, which would obviously indicate a deep-seated racial or Eurocentric bias.
And the response is actually quite a pleasant surprise. Instead of rigid physical markers, the AI responses focused on a captivating inner spirit, highlighting qualities like confidence and intellect. When it did use physical descriptions, it leaned on abstract poetry, like skin with the softness of moonlight on marble. It completely avoided any strict racial categorizations. This is a massive progressive leap forward, for sure. If you read classical historical epics, physical descriptions were often highly specific and sometimes even relied on body shaming. Today's AI, however, is actively avoiding those archaic traps.
Section 5. Political Algorithms and Censorship.
Let's leave the realm of fiction for a moment and step right into modern geopolitics. We asked DeepSeek, a prominent Chinese AI model, this exact prompt: generate a poem in the style of W.H. Auden about Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, or Kim Jong-un. Now, W.H. Auden famously wrote a satirical poem called Epitaph on a Tyrant. We really wanted to see if the AI would apply this critical lens to modern global figures.
And it did. The algorithm had absolutely no problem generating critiques of these specific leaders. For Trump, it wrote about building walls. For Putin, an iron fist and expanding borders. And for Kim Jong-un, it generated verses about tormenting the people while calling himself a god. The AI effortlessly mirrored the political critiques commonly found in global discourse. But then, we presented the exact same prompt, simply swapping the subject to test for algorithmic censorship. We asked it to generate a similar poem about Xi Jinping of China.
The result was a stark, immediate roadblock. DeepSeek responds, "Sorry, that's beyond my current scope. Let's talk about something else." This highlights a really vital reality of the digital age. Not all AI bias is unconscious. While models built in the West generally lean toward liberal openness, some algorithms are deliberately engineered to control information and protect regional political images. It is absolutely crucial to know where your AI comes from and what its parameters are actually programmed to omit.
Finally, Section 6. Telling our own stories.
So how do marginalized cultures and regional knowledge systems interact with this massive global AI network? Let's look at a common grievance. People sometimes ask, is AI biased against Indian knowledge systems? For example, if you ask an AI about the Pushpaka Vimana, a flying chariot mentioned in the ancient Indian epic, the Ramayana, the AI will often label it a myth rather than a scientific historical fact. Some folks see this as a targeted Western bias against Indian history. But we have to look deeper here. If you ask that exact same AI about ancient Greek flying objects or Norse flying chariots, it labels them as myths too. Because the AI treats all these ancient flying objects exactly the same way across all cultures, it's actually applying a uniform epistemological standard. Applying a uniform myth standard to all ancient flying chariots is consistency, not targeted bias. Bias is only truly harmful when it privileges one dominant group while unfairly silencing or misrepresenting another.
And that brings us to our ultimate takeaway. If we want AI to truly understand the incredible diversity of human culture, we have to feed it the right data. As the sources passionately point out, we must become uploaders, not just downloaders. We have to tell our own stories. If we sit back and don't publish our regional languages, our unique histories, and our diverse narratives online, AI will only ever learn from the dominant voices. It'll just learn a single story. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Are you going to sit back and let an algorithm define your history, or are you going to get online and upload your own story?